Have you ever felt like someone's watching you when you're completely alone? Tonight, a nightmare begins. The new roommate. It was the first week of September when I moved into Northmore University's old dormitory. The building looked like it hadn't been touched for decades. Tall windows covered in dust, long corridors that echoed every step, and that faint, dry smell of old wood and rain. I was nervous but excited. It was my first time living away from home, and I wanted everything to feel perfect. My new roommate's name was Alice Morgan. She hadn't arrived yet when I moved in, so I had the whole room to myself for a few hours. The sun was setting when the door finally creaked open. A tall girl walked in, pale skin, dark brown hair that almost covered her eyes. She smiled faintly and said, "Hi, I'm Alice." Her voice was soft, almost too soft, like she was afraid of being heard. We talked a little. She didn't say much about herself, only that she transferred from another university. I tried to be friendly, but something about her made me uncomfortable. Maybe it was the way she kept staring, not directly at me, but just past me. That night, I couldn't sleep. The rain tapped on the window, and I heard soft breathing from Alice's bed. I turned around. She was lying still, facing the wall. I closed my eyes and tried to relax. Then, I heard it, a faint creak. It sounded like someone slowly getting out of bed. I opened my eyes. The room was dark, but I could see her silhouette standing near my desk. She wasn't moving, just standing there, watching me. I froze. "Alice," I whispered. No answer. For a few seconds, she stayed still, then quietly climbed back in her bed. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my heart racing. Maybe she was sleepwalking, I thought. Maybe it was nothing. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And that was only my first night at Northmore University. The next day, I tried to act normal. Alice didn't mention anything about last night, and I didn't either. Maybe she didn't even remember standing there. Maybe she had been sleepwalking, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Every time I looked at her, I could still picture her shadow standing in the dark, perfectly still, watching. Classes started that morning. Alice didn't come with me. She said she wasn't feeling well. When I came back in the afternoon, she was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. Her laptop was open, but the screen was black. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "You okay?" She slowly turned her head toward me and smiled. "Yeah," she whispered. "I'm just tired. The nights here are loud." That night, I put on my headphones and played some soft music to help me sleep. At around 3 a.m., the music stopped. My phone battery had died. The room was silent, completely silent. Then I heard it again, breathing. It wasn't mine. It was heavy, uneven, coming from the side of my bed. I opened my eyes. Everything was dark, but I could feel her there, standing. My heart was beating so fast I could barely breathe. Slowly, I reached for my phone to turn on the flashlight. The light flickered on, and there she was, Alice, standing less than a meter away from me, head tilted slightly, eyes half open, staring. Her face looked blank, almost lifeless. Her breathing was loud, deep and shaky, like someone trying not to cry. I whispered, "Alice, what are you doing?" She didn't answer. She just stood there breathing. Then, after a few seconds, she quietly turned and went back to her bed, lying down as if nothing had happened. I sat frozen for the rest of the night, staring into the darkness. When the first light of morning crept through the window, I finally looked at her again. She was already awake, and she was smiling. After that night, I couldn't look at Alice the same way again. She acted normal, maybe too normal. She laughed in class, talked to other students, and even offered to make me tea one evening. But behind every smile, I felt something watching me. By the third night, I was exhausted. I hadn't slept properly since I moved in, so I decided to stay up just to see what really happens when the lights go out. At around midnight, Alice went to bed early. She turned off her lamp, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and said softly, "Good night, Emma." I waited until her breathing sounded deep, like she was asleep. The room was completely dark except for the thin blue light from my laptop screen. I tried to focus on my essay until I heard it again. That breathing. Slow, deep, but this time it wasn't coming from Alice's side. It was closer, lower. It was coming from under my bed. My fingers froze over the keyboard. I didn't move, didn't breathe. For a moment, I thought it was just my imagination until I heard it again. A soft, wet inhale, then a whisper, "Emma." My heart stopped. I bent down slowly, shaking, and lifted the blanket edge to look beneath the bed. There was nothing there, only darkness. But the whisper came again, louder, closer. "Emma, she's not sleeping." I jerked back, hitting my head on the wall. Alice's lamp turned on instantly. She was sitting up in her bed, eyes wide open. "Are you okay?" she asked, her tone calm but cold. I couldn't answer. I just stared at her, because at that exact moment, I realized something. Alice's lips hadn't moved. She hadn't spoken at all. After that night, I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. I kept hearing that voice in my head, the whisper from under the bed. "She's not sleeping." Who was it talking about? Me or Alice? The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just stress. Too many late nights, too much coffee, too many creepy thoughts. But when I looked in the mirror that morning, something felt wrong. The dorm had an old oval mirror next to the window, the kind with tiny cracks around the edges. I walked up to it, brushing my hair, and for just a second I saw it. My reflection blinked a second too late. I froze. Then I smiled nervously, telling myself I imagined it. But deep down, I knew I didn't. That evening, Alice didn't come back to the dorm. She texted me that she'd be staying with a friend overnight. For the first time, I was alone. I tried to relax, to convince myself that the room was safe. But at around 2 a.m., I woke up to a soft sound, a gentle tapping, coming from the window. The curtains swayed slightly, even though the window was closed. I turned on my lamp and gasped. The mirror, the one beside the window, was fogged up like someone had been breathing on it. And there, in the mist, was a single word written with a finger. "Look." My hands shook as I stood up. I took a slow step toward the mirror. My reflection looked back, pale, tired, frightened. Then it smiled. I didn't, but it did. Slowly, widely, I stumbled backward, heart pounding, knocking over the lamp. The light flickered once, twice, then went out completely. And in the pitch black dark, I heard that same whisper again. "Emma, she's back." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made my heart jump. The creak of the floor, the hum of the radiator, even the wind brushing against the window. Then I heard it, the soft click of the door. Alice was back, or at least someone who looked like her. I held my breath. She stepped inside slowly, dragging her feet as if she didn't want to make a sound. Her hair fell over her face, hiding her eyes. "Emma," she whispered. Her voice was the same, but colder, empty. I wanted to speak, to ask if she was really Alice. But no words came out. My throat was dry. She moved closer, closer to my bed. I could see the floorboards creak under her weight. My chest tightened, and I noticed it. Her movements were slightly off. Too smooth, too quiet, like a shadow moving independently. She stopped right beside me. I could see her breathing, shallow, almost mechanical. "Emma," she said again. And this time I saw her eyes. They weren't Alice's. They were black and empty. I screamed, and she vanished. Just like that, gone. But the feeling stayed. That cold, heavy presence. And then I heard it coming from under the bed. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Every nerve in my body was on fire. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was in the room with me. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard it again. A faint, dragging sound coming from under my bed. I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body didn't move. The sound grew louder. Soft whispers now mixed with the scraping of something hard against the floor. I held my breath, heart hammering. Then I saw it, a shadow stretching across the floor. Not Alice, something else. Something low, slow, and wrong. "Emma," the voice came again. Deeper this time, colder, almost laughing. I didn't dare move. I couldn't. Then I felt it. A hand, cold, wet, brushing against my ankle. My stomach turned. My mind screamed, "Run, run." I grabbed the edge of the bed, ready to pull myself up, and that's when I saw it. Two black eyes staring up at me from the darkness. Under the bed, I screamed and jumped onto the chair by my desk, knocking it over. The shadow disappeared instantly, like it had never been there. But the whispers stayed, and I knew deep down it wasn't gone. I couldn't take it anymore. The whispers, the shadows, the feeling of being watched. It was too much. I needed to know. I needed to see if Alice was really asleep or if something else was in that room with me. I got out of bed quietly, trying not to make a sound. The floorboards creaked under my bare feet. I grabbed my flashlight, the small one I kept in my desk drawer, and shone it toward her bed. Alice was there, sleeping. Her chest rose and fell in a perfect rhythm. Everything seemed normal, but something felt wrong. The air around her was colder, too still. I tiptoed toward her bed, heart racing. And then I saw it. The blanket on her side of the bed was moving. Slowly, like something underneath, it was shifting. I froze. The flashlight trembled in my hand. Suddenly, the blanket lifted. Not Alice. A dark, thin shape slithered out from under her bed, long, black, and wet. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. I gasped. It hissed, low, menacing, like it had been waiting for me to notice. My legs felt frozen. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Then it vanished. Just like that, leaving only a cold chill in the air. I ran to my own bed and didn't look back. Alice continued sleeping as if nothing had happened. And that's when I realized she wasn't the one I should be afraid of. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Every sound made my heart race. The whispering, the faint dragging, the creaking floorboards. I got up, trying to convince myself to calm down. But I couldn't. Not tonight. I walked slowly toward the old oval mirror by the window. The same mirror where I saw the word "look" days ago. I swallowed hard and turned on the flashlight on my phone. My reflection stared back at me. At first, everything seemed normal. Just me, pale and tired. Then it blinked. A second too late. I froze. My reflection's lips curled into a smile. Slow, deliberate. And its eyes, they weren't mine. They were dark, empty. I stepped back, heart pounding. The reflection didn't move. It stayed there, smiling, waiting. Then I heard it, soft breathing behind me. I spun around. No one was there. I looked back at the mirror. The smile was wider now. Closer. My own reflection lifted its hand and waved. But it wasn't me. It was Alice. Or at least something pretending to be her. I stumbled back, nearly falling, and turned off the flashlight. The room went completely dark, and in the silence, I heard that cold, whispering voice once again. Emma, don't turn around. I couldn't sleep, not after what I saw in the mirror. I had to know. I had to see if Alice was really herself. I got out of bed quietly, flashlight in hand, and walked toward her side of the room. Her bed was empty. I froze. Then I heard it soft, slow breathing, coming from the corner of the room. I pointed the flashlight there and saw her, Alice, sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her head tilted slightly, staring at the wall. But something was wrong. The shadows around her seemed to move, twisting and stretching, almost like they were alive. I took a cautious step closer. Alice, I whispered. She didn't move, didn't blink. The breathing continued, but it wasn't hers. I realized in that moment that the thing in my dorm was mimicking her. It wasn't Alice. It was something else. I backed away slowly, my heart racing. Then I heard it from under the bed. Emma, don't be afraid. Watch closely. The voice was soft, almost inviting. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Alice remained still, silent, unaware. Or maybe pretending to be unaware. And then I saw it, a shadow detach itself from her body, slithering along the floor toward me. I screamed. The room plunged into darkness. The shadow was moving fast now, sliding across the floor toward me. I froze, unable to scream, unable to run. Alice remained on the floor, perfectly still, as if nothing was happening. The voice whispered again, low and chilling. Emma, it's time to see everything. I felt cold fingers brush against my arm. The room seemed to stretch, the walls growing taller, the shadows darker. I turned my flashlight toward Alice and gasped. Her eyes were pitch black. Her mouth opened slowly, forming words I couldn't understand. Then the shadow leapt. It wrapped around me like a thick, wet fog, pulling me to the floor. I struggled, but it was too strong. I could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow, echoing in the room. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder shook the building. The shadow released me. I scrambled to my bed, shaking uncontrollably. Alice remained on the floor, silent. The room was still, but I knew the thing wasn't gone. I packed my bag that morning and never went back to that dorm. Alice, she transferred shortly after. I never saw her again, but sometimes at night, when the wind rattles the window, I hear a soft whisper, calling my name, and I wonder, was it ever really Alice? Or was it the thing in the shadows, waiting, watching? Timeless. The end. Did you survive this nightmare? Subscribe and hit the bell. More chilling stories await you at Timeless Nightmare.